And welcome. I'm Celeste LaCroix. I'm the president of the Westport League of Women Voters, and I'm here with our friends who really are the people who make the vote happen. As you know, that's the core of the League of Women Voters: voting education, voting registration, getting out the vote. But these people are the people in Town Hall who make it happen, and they're brand new, so it's our opportunity to have you meet our new town clerk. That's Mr. Jeffrey Dunkerton.
Hello, good afternoon.
Nice to see you.
Same here.
And we have our Democratic Town Register, who's also brand new, Debra Greenberg.
Hello.
And our Republican Registrar, Maria Signore. And here we are, and I'm so glad that you could join us. We have people on Zoom. We have people here in the audience, and at the end of our program, if we have questions from the audience, we'll be taking those questions. But I first want to say hello and tell us about you. And Jeffrey, you're the farthest one over there, so why don't you start? Tell us, give us your bio.
Sure. So I am new to Westport, but I'm not new to the election process. I was the Registrar of Voters for 4 years in my hometown of Brookfield, where I started to get a feel for the election process. After that, I took a position with the city of Danbury as the assistant town clerk, and primarily focused in Danbury on the elections, helping the registrars out, and got a taste of the absentee ballot process, which was sort of the other side of the election. Of elections. So I've sort of seen it full circle, and it's great to be here in Westport. I've got my first election under my belt, hopefully the first of many more.
Any regrets?
No, not yet.
Good to hear, good to hear. Well, Deborah, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Sure. So I've lived in Westport over 22 years. My husband is Brett. We have 2 children that we brought up in the school system. Tori's at University of Denver. My son Eric is at the University of Tulane. And I simply can't believe how fast it goes from when we moved here originally. So that's my personal bio. And then I was a corporate bankruptcy lawyer in New York for 10 years. And then I moved into distressed debt, and then I worked from home, taking care of the kids, and I have been a coach at several high schools. I'm the head coach currently at Staples High School for girls squash, and I have discontinued my relationship with Weston High School, where I was the tennis coach. I know, so how did I get here? When my little one, Tori, went to college just last year, I said, oh my God, gotta get busy, gotta keep myself busy. And I did see on the Democratic Town Committee's website that they are looking for a registrar. And I thought, how on point is that for me to get involved in my community? I have a legal background, and I talked extensively with Marla, with Ellen Lautenberg. She's the president of the DTC, and frankly, I tried to talk to whoever was intimately familiar with the process, and I felt that this would be a good fit for me. And I started training with Marla around March 1st. I got certified by May 5th. They do give you two and a half years to do that, but I was so into it. So I did that quickly, and I've been working in the registrar's office since March 1st. And Marla officially stepped down on September 13th. So I've been a Democratic registrar 6 weeks. And my first election went really well. This team is amazing. My coworker Maria and I are like on the same page all the time, and on the weekends we text if we need to discuss anything. And then having this pro, the town clerk has been so supportive, so helpful, not only from the town clerk perspective, but because he's been a registrar, savior, and he is always available to us. So we're really lucky, and that's probably way more than you wanted to hear. Sorry.
I guess you don't have any regrets, huh?
Nope.
She's only 6 weeks in.
Yeah. Maria, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, this will be my 19th election. I've been doing this since I was in my early 20s, and I've been everywhere from a moderator to head of absentee, and I was in charge of it last year with all 9,500 ballots, which was a lot of fun. In November, I became the deputy registrar under Richard Ruggiero. I started to slowly take over in January, and I was sworn in October 1st. So I've been doing registrar for a little over a month now, so we're all brand new. And as Deb has said, the election went great. We have been working really hard, working very well together, the three of us, and yeah, this was just a great working relationship and a great election.
Well, remember, this was a very small election compared to what you're going to be facing. So how about if we start by asking, how you really think this election went? First of all, what were the numbers?
So as most of you know, the absentee ballots were allowed to be issued with the COVID-19 excuse. So it was not a no excuse absentee ballot process, but the COVID-19 reason was allowed to be checked by anybody. So it definitely increased the number of absentee ballots that we saw come through our office. On a like election, we probably should have seen about 300 to 400 absentee ballots, and we received about 1,600 back in our office. So it definitely puts an additional strain on our office, the town clerk's office, and town clerks across the state. I think it's sort of the wave of the future. I think we're going to see a little bit more of this. There'll have to be some work done up in Hartford to change things permanently. But last year, the town clerks handled an extremely huge task in processing about 10,000 here in Westport. I had a very similar number up in Danbury. And it really stopped our offices from doing our regular work, and we stopped to focus on the election. So it was tough. It was very tough. This year wasn't as bad. I think if we were able to conquer last year, that next year in the governor's race, I have confidence that the town clerks across the state will be able to handle the extra volume.
Now, question, those absentee ballots that come in through the drop box, or when I did it, I just handed it over, in the clerk's office. When are they registered? When are they counted?
Yeah, so we check them in. So we have a log as to who received applications, which is the first step. Then we show when we receive that application back, and we issue you a ballot. That ballot's in your hands, and when you return it, like you just described, we would then check that ballot in as we received a ballot from you. The ballot stays in our vault, in our possession, until election morning, and on election morning, we do a large transfer of all of our ballots to the registrar's office, and at that point, they own the ballots, and they go through the counting process on election day. So the ballots cannot be opened before election day, and they need to be opened shortly by not much after 8 o'clock when the polls close.
Okay. In the future, I am madly in love with the drop box. I think it should be mine. And let's say we get to a point where the majority of people are using that. Well, like the last election when so many people used it. But let's say now we have 85% of the people thinking they live in Oregon and they can just vote ahead of time. Would that make it easier as far as poll watchers and poll workers? Could you schedule work a little better? What do you think?
It's got a whole really loaded question and thought process there because Connecticut is strict. So we do not have early voting in Connecticut. We have absentee balloting, and that's very important. So On the 3rd of November, the governor's executive order to have the COVID-19 reason expired. So if we were to have an election today, it is back to normal absentee ballots. You must prove to us by signing the affidavit why you cannot go to the polls on election day and vote. We had about 19% of voters vote absentee here in Westport. It's larger than normal, but I thought it was a fairly small number. When you think about it, the majority of the people are still going to the polls and voting. If the state of Connecticut were to put in some type of early voting, whether that be all by mail like some states do, or whether that means we open up polling places or a polling place a day or two or a week before the election, those are all options. The drop boxes were saviors for us. Last year they were, this year they were a great help. We don't have to rely on the mail. Where the people don't have to come into town hall, they can access the box 24/7. Having it in a central location was great. Last year we had some complications with it. When I was in Danbury, we had multiple boxes spread out throughout the city, and quite honest, it caused a little confusion. We had one in the central part, but then we had them on the outskirts, and what happened is we were getting ballots from other towns because people were driving through, they saw the box, it says the state of Connecticut on it, they drop their ballot in, we get it and call up New Fairfield. I actually had one in Westport. How it ended up in Danbury, I don't know, but I remember calling Patty and saying, listen, I don't know how it ended up here, but I'm gonna drop it in the mail. And unfortunately, we can't guarantee that ballot is gonna make its way here or wherever town it may be in. So it added a little extra confusion to the whole process. The drop boxes were new. So having one centrally located town hall, city hall, is great.
Yeah, so this is why I wanted you to all meet these people, because we have no idea some of the problems that they have to encounter, some of the things that they put up with, and so that's why I wanted you to meet them, because they work like Trojans. Before the elections, they wouldn't even pick up their phone, these two ladies. I'm saying, please, please, but of course their first concern is making sure their job gets done. With all these changes that have occurred, how does it affect the registrars? I mean, are people confused? What do they say to you? What were some of the things that happened? Deb, why don't you start first?
Sure. A couple of points of confusion are voters calling us for absentee ballots. Hey, can I come in and pick up my absentee ballot? Unfortunately, that's not really how it works. And one of the points that Jeff was mentioning about, the boxes. So last year, the Secretary of State's office contacted you, the voter, to send you the absentee ballot application. So continuing on, the confusion this year is that the Secretary of State did not contact you to get you an absentee ballot, so the voter had to go online, find the application, not the ballot, the application for the ballot. And there's confusion as to which office does what. So we fielded many, many phone calls and people coming to our office that they're unfortunately in the wrong place. We're happy to help them. You get the application online, or you can get it in person with the town clerk. Then you return it to the town clerk's office, and they will issue you the the ballot. So there was a big confusion over who does what, because you always think, oh, well, I'm getting the ballot, it's coming from the registrars, but when it comes to absentee ballots, it comes from the town clerk. So that was one big point of confusion. And I thought of something else, but it took so long to answer.
No, you're fine. Marie, what did you come across?
Well, since we've had a lot of people coming in from New York, their party selections were big questions, because in New York you can be an independent, and in Connecticut you have to be unaffiliated if you don't want to be part of a party, because we do have an independent party, which was something we had to explain a lot. Also that when you are registering, we do have time limits, and how EDR works, that if you've missed any deadlines, you can come to town hall, and it is registering and voting. you don't go to your polling place, which was a lot of questions we did get. Since I've missed the deadline, can I register at your office and then walk over to my polling place to be able to vote?
So EDR stands for Election Day Registration. There is a cutoff date. It's fairly close to the election, but there has to be a final date by which we can rely on the registry to produce the roll books, the poll books, and we have to say, look, you'll have to come to register in person and you can vote at the same time. So that's Election Day registration. We had 21 customers, as I call them, this year. We had a slow flow, but it comes down to a high degree of importance because, as you all saw, the selectman race was so close. So every vote counts, and we, made sure that they were all there in proper order.
Yeah. What were those numbers again? Because they were very close.
The 69 for the selectman race 69 was the difference.
When we say every vote counts, it's every vote counts. All right, well, a big part of your job is the fact that you guys have to work together down in your hole, down in the basement, where they keep you, I guess they want to control, all the fervor and the craziness, so they put you down there. But that's a big part of your job because obviously you're not going to be there, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, every day. And whenever I've been down there, it's one or the other. So I'm glad that you can continue, to work together harmoniously.
So that's interesting you should say that. So since we've come to the office, we've been working really hard to make it pleasant. Because previously, it was just jammed with papers. So we've really moved things to storage. We've cleaned it. It looks nicer. It's brighter. And then we've been working so hard to get ready for the election. And our jobs, when we're hired, we were told they're part-time, 21 hours a week. Well, I think we've worked enough right now, even though it was a local election, because we tried so hard to make sure everything was ready and in the best possible way to, ready for success. So we were working super hard to get ready for the election. Yeah. And people walk in, they're like, wow, it looks like a different place.
You're still in the basement.
Yeah, we're still in the basement, but it does look better.
We have windows.
Come by anytime. We love having visitors.
Yes.
All right, well, and visitors with cookies, I'm sure.
That doesn't hurt.
All right, now this was really a trial because this was such a small election, but next year's election is going to be much bigger, and then, of course, they get bigger after that. Looking back at how this works, if you had anything, you had the power to make any changes, how would you change what the registrar does, Maria?
Do you mean just our job or
Yeah.
how we ran the election?
Yeah, all of it.
Well, the election part went great. The little snafus we had were with placement. We had some issues with lighting and equipment just breaking down. No matter how prepped you are, things will happen. We had all of our tabulators serviced, and on election day, one went down completely. And it was serviced 2 weeks before, and everything was running great then. We got everyone in to vote. We need to just work on small little things like signage and lighting and postcards, which caused some questions. But everything else, I think, went through fine.
It was a good election for us to really sink our teeth into. Some of the issues, could we have seen a little better? Possibly, but we were so brand new, and some of the election sites, the polling places were actually new. So who knew? We went to Coleytown Middle School. First, we tried to send a postcard to let every Coley L voter know, please go to Coley Middle. And we still had a lot of questions, which no matter what you do, you're always going to have questions. We got there and we said, all right, it's going to be really dark. Oh no, the janitor says, the custodian, he said, it's going to be really light, everyone will see. Well, P.S., when I actually drove one of the moderators myself at 4 o'clock in the morning, I said, oh my God, it's really dark. I'm kind of having trouble seeing, because who knew every candidate in Westport was going to pick up all their signs across town and plant them right in front of Coley Middle School, so you couldn't see our signs. So next year, Maria came up with a fantastic idea. Today she said to me, hey Deb, do you know when you're traveling at night and there's construction on the highways and they have those big, big lights? Let's rent a couple and put it right in front of the school. That's a great idea. Then the sign people that we hire, we said, I'm going to get a mural next year, a life-size mural, and hang it on the fence. So, should we have knew that we were going to have that kind of issue? I don't think so, because also it was a new polling place, right? We had a new polling place here in the library. It was a little on the small side. Everyone got in and everyone got out, but it was a little tight. So we're here now, and we're going to be reserving today for next year.
Listen, I live near Coleytown, and I saw the sign, use this driveway. They changed driveways, okay, which is a major problem. I'm amazed if anybody made it to the right driveway, because people just do what they've done for the last 20 years, and they don't like a change,
Right, and even those voters who knew, 2 years ago, they were at Coley Middle. For 2 years, they were at Coley L, and they said, does that postcard mean me? I'm like, wow. Again, my background is as an attorney, and we all looked at that postcard and said, okay, everyone understands what this says, but...
We got a lot of phone calls from people who vote at Long Lots or Saugatuck saying, do we have to now vote at Coley Middle? So that was another batch of questions we were getting.
You can never underestimate the intelligence of the public. That's the rule.
We'll aim to do better next year.
Yeah. Jeffrey, did you come into things like that? People being confused about the changes?
Yeah, especially with the absentee ballots. As was mentioned earlier, last year the Secretary of State's office mailed out applications to every registered voter. They chose not to do it this year, primarily because they just didn't have the funds to be able to do it. They said, listen, you guys are on your own pretty much as towns and municipalities. And we definitely had some questions that came across. Some of the political parties here in town decided to take it upon themselves to mail out applications to their targeted voters. And it's completely fine, completely legal, whatever they wanted to do. And as far as that goes, it was out of our hands. They took the applications out, they documented them properly, and we were fine with it. We had some things internally, and our process is different for every election that we have. So for a municipal election, our job, this is actually the most that we have to do pre-election as far as receiving in endorsements from our local parties. We, the town clerks, actually create the ballot itself. We have to proof it. We have to input it into the system. We have to order ballots. So this is all 2 months before the actual election is happening. This year, we've had no historical data to go back on where we've had this COVID-19 reason for absentee ballots. So unfortunately, we're sort of throwing a dart at the wall and saying, well, I guess we're going to have 50% people come out and vote absentee, but we need to have 70% for them to be able to vote at the polls, because we just don't know where they're going to go and vote. Ballots aren't cheap. An absentee ballot, I think, is 45 cents per ballot, and a polling ballot, I think, is around 30 cents. So they add up, and unfortunately, the last thing we want to do is fall short on ballots. So we order a lot. There's no doubt about that. We had some things with the applications and with the ballots. The state was able to help us out last year due to the high volume. It seems simple, but they had barcodes on the applications. And it was as simple as us taking our little laser, we would zap it, and all the voters' information would appear on our screen. We would do 2 or 3 clicks and issue an absentee ballot. Well, this year we had to type in a name, we had to scroll through a list, we had to select the voter, we had to then assign the ballot. And when you're issuing 1,600 of these, it takes time and adds a lot of time on to our processes. So I hope that some of the things we picked up last year in the large election that we'll be able to merge next year into the governor's race. You know, Westport does an amazing job in getting out and voting, an amazing job. I mean, at 43%, a lot of people will look and like your face right now, it's like really 40% for an election. If you look around the state, we're probably one of the highest.
It's enough to make you cry.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, 15 to 20 to 30%, I would say, would be on average statewide through all the other towns. So I congratulate the people of Westport. They do a great job, and it makes us feel good doing all this work behind the scenes. It's like hosting a big event or a wedding or a big concert, and nobody comes, and it's like, all right, I just did all that work for nothing. So at least we see our hard work, and people get to appreciate it or enjoy it.
Yeah. Having worked at the polls, the thing that was so upsetting to me is the fact that everything has to tally down to each single, it's the detail to it that you don't even think about when you go and vote yourself, and it seems like such a smooth process. Well, guess what? They can't go home unless all the numbers absolutely tally. And I'm a person who has always run my checkbook with the feel method, so it's never tallied. So working at the polls, I felt all this pressure, but they take it that seriously. It's amazing.
Actually, I'd like to say to your point, Celeste, one thing we did predict, knowing we were all new, is that every head of every polling location that we asked to please work for this election, and they all said yes, was the veterans. So we had Mr. Lowenstein, we had, you know, all moderators who have done this many, many times. So even if we were new, they were the pros. We were gonna shine because they're the people in the polling locations that know what I has to be dotted and what T is crossed. They were amazing. And they all did their job from 5 o'clock in the morning until they left at 11 p.m. in the evening.
Yeah. Oh, but the pay is so wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
So while we're on poll workers, if I may, because I'm very, you know, I like to solicit, we did have many new poll workers, I would say about 40. And we have reached out to, first of all, thank every single poll worker personally for working even though they're paid. It's community service, right? Like Celeste said, they're not breaking the bank on what they're making on election day. So we have thanked every single poll worker, and we've asked for feedback from all the new people. Every single solitary poll worker said they will be back. Maybe not a full day, but at least a half a day, because for some of the older people, it is quite a long day. But the poll workers make it happen, and that's why what happened inside the polls was so successful.
Maria, what do you say about the poll workers that you worked with? Did you have enough of them?
We could have had a few more. We did have a few cancellations, but the ones that we did have were willing to kick in, stay later. People that were supposed to come in at 1 came earlier if we needed. We also had a lot of Deb's girls from the high school come to help us direct traffic. We would love to have more poll workers at all of our polling places so that the strain gets lessened, but the days are long and we do understand that. So if anyone does want to, you know, our numbers are in the books and you can call us at town hall.
You know, it is really a community service, and I must say, working at the polls, which I've done, it just makes you feel like you're very involved and you're doing something wonderful for your town. So do think about it for the next election. It's going to be a much bigger election, and they're really going to need help.
All those new people said that one of their favorite things to comment on the day was that they've always been a voter, but now to see it from the other side, that was the real value in their experience. So definitely.
Yeah. All right, you've got a much bigger election coming up next year. What changes would you like to see? Maria, let's start with you.
Changes. I really don't see, besides getting more poll workers and some better polling areas and fixing the bumps that we had this year, I would just really like to see more people come out to vote, have more poll workers, and have more, I guess, people want to interact with our elected officials. Because that has always been a question to us in the registrar's office. Who am I voting for? Which is something we personally can ask. So next year, I would love more of the people that are coming to vote to know about who they're voting for, to ask more questions.
What? What? We are the people who do the voter's guide. We are the people who do vote 411. Have all you people been asleep?
That was just a question that we got a ton of. Can you tell me about this candidate? Can you tell me about that candidate? Just general things like that. They have read the voter's guide, but they wanted to know if we could introduce them.
The inside scoop?
Yes.
Yeah, not allowed. Deb, what do you think?
Sure. So we have been working hard in our office getting some new software. One of them was just approved before the election, so it was too late to implement for this election. It's called Easy Vote software, and actually what that does, even though it has the word vote in it, because there's other other facets to that software, it's going to manage our poll workers from when we think about someone to paying them after the election. That is going to streamline a lot of our work. So Maria and I spent, many, many hours managing who we're going to have, what the schedule is, then if they change. All that is manual. And then we paid them. That took us 4 days working all day to get them paid. That's been done. So this new software is going to streamline that whole area of what we do in the office. The other thing, and I was talking to Jeff about that today, is we would really love to have, this is a wish list, I don't know if we're probably not going to happen by next year, but electronic poll books. And what happens with that is you have the hard copy poll book, and you have someone with a computer or an iPad, and as someone announces who they are, it goes right in live in the system that they have come to vote. So another thing we do on election day, which you may or may not know, is every single hour we speak to the polling places and we find out how many people are voting, and then we put it out to a specific list. We would like to post it on the website, but this electronic poll book would keep track electronically, and that would alleviate all of this extra work on election day and then afterwards, because it would streamline that whole end of elections also. That's a little pricey. I have an idea of how we can pay for it, since we didn't have a primary this year. We did have money in our budget, so if the town said, Greenwich has it, a lot of good fancy towns have it, why shouldn't Westport have it? So that would be on my to-do list, big time.
Jeff, what do you think? Because you've worked in cities.
Yeah, I mean, the electronic poll book is really a game changer, especially in a small town like this. I think the state has sort of steered away from it just because to implement that in larger cities, it would be, I don't want to say impossible, but it would be a task. But they do allow the towns to be able to do it on their own with having that hard copy as a backup. But it's a live, up-to-the-minute system where anybody in the public can watch what's going on at the polls, who's voted. And, a lot of people think that that's sort of secretive, but when you vote, it's public, and people are calling asking us, can you tell me if this person voted? We don't know how you voted, and we never will, but we will release absolutely absentee ballot lists. We mail out daily as far as who's received an application, who's returned their ballot. And, it's to help the candidates and to help the parties. They have their targeted voters, and they want to make sure that all the work they've done for the months leading up to the election pays off on election day. The poll books are one big way that would be able to help them and relieve a lot of pressure off of especially the registrar's office on election day. You know, the town clerk's office, we're really locked in as well as the registrars, but the state dictates a lot as to what we're able to do and not able to do. So we really pretty much, especially these past couple of years, have just sort of sat back and waited for direction from the state. Sometimes it's been with a little bit of notice, and sometimes it's been last minute, and they've set the town, or the town's pretty much scrambling to implement plans to process extra absentee ballots or things like that. One thing that we handle in the town clerk's office on local elections are the campaign finance reports. And a lot of people don't realize that those are open to the public. The campaigns and the candidates are obligated to report back all of their fundraising and how they spend their money as well. For larger elections, the state has an online program, which is just wonderful. It takes us out of the picture as far as the town clerks go, and the treasurers who have to file these reports love it. It's a great program. But for some reason, when it comes to municipal elections, they do away with it, and then the responsibility comes down on us as the town clerks to make sure that these filings happen within the time limits that they're supposed to, or the time periods, I should say. And if not, it's actually up to us to fine the treasurer of the campaign $200, and the treasurer has to take that money directly out of their pocket, cannot use campaign funds to pay that fine. So if you're ever asked to be a treasurer on a campaign, make sure you read the fine print. It's a lot of work, no matter how pretty the candidate paints it to you.
Okay, do they also track who gave them that money?
Absolutely. So anytime you contribute to any type of campaign or candidate, you are documented, and you will actually fill out a form when you do contribute that money. Name, address, I think your occupation is on there, the amount of money that you're contributing. So everything is open. There's not much when it comes to elections that isn't public information.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. Well, let me see. My next question for you guys was on my phone.
Do you want me to pull it out? See which one we haven't hit?
I made a whole list of really intense questions, and they're all at home. But we had an issue that came to us, and I would like you to talk about this a little bit. This is the process that someone who is an independent candidate, and is it harder for them to get on the ballot? What do they have to do? How do they get the rules? It came to us because we had an independent candidate who really felt like it was stacked against them. So would you care to address that, Jeff?
Yeah, it's tough. Unaffiliated voters are candidates when it comes to getting on the ballot outside of the endorsements from the major parties. It can be definitely challenging, especially if they've never done it before. These parties do this every 2 years. They know what they're doing. They know the deadlines they need to meet, and they're very good at it. So somebody who's never been through this process, it can definitely be a challenge. Getting on the ballot is one. They have a whole calendar that they need to follow as far as deadlines that go. And then you add in the campaign finance part of it on the other side. It's definitely challenging. So if they are going to be a petitioning candidate, they have different deadlines than the endorsed candidates. So just to give you an example, if I go up to the Democratic Party and say I want to run for first selectman, and I am a Democrat, they tell me, sorry, we're going to go with candidate A and not you. I have the ability to force a primary. So I would petition my fellow Democrats to try to force a primary, and then we would go to primary day where only Democrats would be able to vote, and you would choose who you want to be your candidate for the Democratic Party for first selectman. There's a process if they go outside of the primary process where they can be a petitioning candidate on the ballot, which means that their name would appear down at the bottom as a petitioning candidate, but their name will appear on the ballot. And then there's also the write-in candidate. So that's where your name does not appear on the ballot, but you do become an official write-in candidate that we're able to accept your votes for. So there's many different ways. It is confusing. I've been through this numerous times and had many conversations with candidates. And you know, sitting down and explaining to them, showing them the calendars. And the SEEC does a great job for the state of Connecticut. They have sort of a step-by-step as to how to become a candidate, what needs to be done. So I try to refer a lot of the individuals that are just inquiring, because we get tons of inquiries throughout the summer months about, should I do this? How do I do it? And we try to steer them that way.
I would think forcing a primary vote would be very, very expensive. Who pays for that? You
do. The townspeople. So we, to Deb's point, she mentioned it a little while ago, we do budget for a primary year. You know, every town is different. Some towns go to the polls numerous times a year, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year, depending if they pass their budgets via referendum. Here, the RTM in Westport passes their budget. But there's towns in the summer months or spring months that will have a budget vote. If it fails in 2 weeks, they've got to go back to the polls. If that fails, they got to go back again. And then eventually, if they run out of time by July 1st, their governing body would end up adopting the budget. But we're sort of lucky that we're scheduled to go to the polls once. And then if you have a primary, that would be the only time in addition to the election day. And I'm sure we'll have a primary this year. I believe it'll be in early August, if I remember the governor's race. The primary will happen then. So that's where the parties will go out and vote for their candidates. They are closed primaries, not like open primaries where some states have. So if you do want to vote in a primary that may be coming up, you need to be affiliated with that party. So Maria,
for 90 days, please.
Yeah, and that's important. And we had comments about it this time, and it'll even come up even more leading into a primary. Can I vote? Why can't I vote? Or I just changed my registration. I went from D to R, and why can't I vote? And there's a 90-day grace period. So.
Well, you do many things as the town clerk aside from this vote. So you have a full-time job, but our registrars 21 hours a week. Do you think that's fair? Maria, do you think you'd need more time?
To tell you the truth, since I've started, I have not worked 21 hours. I've been on the 40-hour a week because with COVID, we were only having so many people in the office. So I would love to go back to a 21-hour a week, but I have not seen that as of yet. But what we do during the rest of the year when the election is not going on, we are registering people, getting everything prepared. We do have large projects because we do a canvass where we have to see who still lives in town, who's moved, who's had a party change, who's passed away. So even after the election, we're planning for 6 huge projects.
What are some of those projects?
Well, our canvass is coming up. We're also, our redistricting, because 2022 is our new districts are coming in. And then we have to prepare if we're going to have a primary, so we have to start booking all of our rooms and getting our poll workers. So, and we just started our Who Voted, which we're almost complete with. So we have to physically input everyone that has voted in person, absentee, or has not voted. And we have, our number is 22,000 voters? 20,000 registered voters that we have to manually go in and mark up their files.
Deb, do you think of another project that you would love to do?
Oh, well, so that Easy Vote software, we cannot wait. That's going to take time to learn how that works. And then, God, I would love those poll books. There's no shortage of work. Every time you turn around and you think you might have, I want to look at this or I want to do that. There's things that demand our attention. And yeah, we were high. That was one of the reasons why I wanted the job. I said, oh, 21 hours, that'll be perfect, because I golf, you know? I mean, Longshore Women's Golf Association on Tuesday. And they're probably out there watching on Zoom going, yeah, Deb, actually I just saw a lady walking up there. She's in that too. You know, we're just gonna do the best we can. The election obviously is extremely important, and we feel comfortable for next year, and whatever other projects, we do have a little bit of help. Our deputies put in 10, 15 hours a week of work, and Jeff's amazing, so we'll just do the best we can, and plenty of work. Anybody want to volunteer?
Well, we're the League of Women Voters, and our focus is voter registration, voter education. What can we do better for you guys? We did talk about that earlier in the week, about the primary, that voters have to be part of the particular party whose primary it is within 90 days in order to vote. So that's something we're going to definitely look to you guys to help us to get the word out. Get the word out for, we take all poll workers, any volunteers.
Get out and vote.
Get out and vote. Yes.
And to also have people contact us to see what their party is. Because you can go online to see what you are registered as, but also just giving us a call. Hi, I'm John Smith. What is my registered party? Just so we don't have any issues for people not being able to vote in the upcoming primary.
Well, do we have any questions from the audience here? Oh, please go over to the microphone. We'll look forward to hearing from you. Just tell us who you are.
I'm Nancy Kale. I've just been elected to serve on the RTM in District 9, and I can't sing your praises enough. The pre-election, you know, getting elected and during the election process as a candidate was amazing, so thank you to all three of you for your support. It couldn't have been better. And I'm very interested to know about the numbers, the who voted information that's coming out, and if there are any groups in particular that we need to work on to help with their participation levels. How did our 18-year-olds do? How did the newcomers do? What about our seniors? Who got out and voted and who didn't? And then what could we do about it?
Oh, Jeff, I'm going to turn that one over to you.
Well, does your who voted tell you that data?
Actually, we could generate. So initially, nice to meet you, Nancy, because you and I talked quite a bit, so it's great to put the face and the voice together. Initially, the who voted is, like Maria said, just who voted, how they voted, in person versus absentee, and then if they did not vote. So we have just finished that today. On the other hand, now that we've finished, we can start generating some reports on who voted and do it by age group. We are able to make up reports through the state system, CVRS, by age group. So don't ask us this week. Give us a couple more weeks, because we still have some work to finish the election, but that's a great question, and we can work on that.
I can tell you from previous elections, I mean, that younger generation, it's always tough. I've done many voter drives where you stand in front of an auditorium and you register 100, 200 seniors in high school, and you leave there so energized, and it's great, it's awesome, and then you look back and they didn't vote. So, you know, when I used to give the spiel to the seniors, I'd be like, you know, don't be shy, come on in. It's like going to Stu Leonard's. You start one way, you work your way through, and you exit out one exit. And that's one of the biggest steps, I think, is to get somebody to the polls for the first time. They may be a little shy or a little scared, but, you know, the older population always does quite well. We have something called supervised balloting, which is something where the registrars go out to the nursing homes and will assist the individuals that are in the nursing homes vote. Obviously, last year it didn't happen, and also didn't happen this year. They were suspended by the state to allow us to go to the nursing homes. So that probably hurt a little bit, I don't think drastically. But anything we can do to get the people out, definitely help.
Well, one of the big things on our wish list, national, has gone that we can now have 16-year-olds as members of the League of Women Voters. And that's a push that we are seriously going to get into because it's important. We can teach them how to run elections at the high school level. We can teach them how to run debates. It can be great experience for them, a great resume builder, and that's something that we're going to get real serious about this year because it's something that we really need to do. We got to start them early, and then we've got to keep them coming.
That's great.
We did have a group of students from high school, from Staples, and then we had one student from Fairfield who participated in the election, and they all thought it was a fantastic experience. Maria and I did attend Staples High School on National Voter Registration Day. We talked about that. And so we didn't get a lot of takers on that day, but we're trying. We're out there. If we could be there, we will be there. And just through my own coaching with the girls through squash, I've been after them since I got the job. Come work for us, come volunteer, and we have had a bunch of the kids come and volunteer.
Yeah. And that one girl from Fairfield actually sought us out. The Fairfield Registrar of Voters were full of poll workers, so they said, would you like to go to Westport? So she gave us a call, and she actually worked the whole day.
She was a rock star, actually. She worked at EDR. She was there at 5:15. That's just on the side of, it's great to have those kids, but just so you know, they are not getting up at 5:15 in the morning. We managed to, actually, we did have one of my squash kids there. She worked the whole half a shift. But otherwise, they said, can I just make my hours? And since they were volunteers, we sort of let them do, let's say, 7 to 1 or 10 to 3. So we were a little more flexible with them.
I remember one year going door to door with the kids who were supposed to hand out the I voted stickers, and they thought after brunch was a good time. So there were lots of people who vote at the early hours in Westport who never get an I voted sticker, but we do try. It's this early morning stuff.
There were no I voted stickers.
We were not allowed.
We talked about that. We were not having that this year.
Yeah.
It's something that the slobs do, but because it was COVID and getting close to people, we just had to make that call in advance, and we said better safe than not. So we did make that call a little early not to do the stickers.
I found that out after I ordered another 5,000 I voted stickers. So you can all come to my house and take as many as you like. They're in a closet, okay? So we have plenty of them for next year available for everyone.
They won't go bad. You'll be
They won't go bad. Right, that's the hope. They won't go bad. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you guys. It's wonderful that we have such nice, knowledgeable people to work with because, as I've said, this is our focus. And remember, we're the League of Women Voters. Join us. Go to our website and find out more about what we do. And thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Celeste.